Hi, and welcome to Mass Bioed's Career Spotlight video. Today, our career ambassador is Sarah Santipadri. She is in clinical operations for AMAG Pharmaceuticals. And hello, Sarah. Thank you for joining us today.
Hello, Carla. Thank you for having me.
So, why don't you begin by telling us a little bit about what AMAG Pharmaceuticals does?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that introduction. AMAG Pharmaceuticals is focused on developing, medicines for unmet, often undertreated illnesses. Our focus is primarily maternal and women's health, as well as the hematology sector. So basically, how we work is, for lack of a better term, we grow by acquisition. So we either acquire new or develop existing assets through collaboration, partnerships, and acquisition. And from there, we obviously bring them through the clinical and regulatory process and ultimately to the market, hopefully. So we really sort of have a niche spot in that respect. We don't
Mhm.
typically develop compounds in-house. So it's a really interesting business model from that perspective.
Great. And you work in clinical operations. Can you describe your title and exactly what kind of work you do? What a typical day in your life would look like?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Senior Director of Clinical Operations, which pretty general in nature. Anybody that's in the industry will sort of say our role changes significantly throughout the day and throughout our careers. I'll start off by saying that no 2 days are alike. And I think that that's the beauty of the work that we do and why I love it so much. There's really no boredom in the industry. I love solving problems and I get to do that on a daily basis. While I may work on a particular project for weeks, months, even years, the work that I do is not repetitive. And so we in ClinOps, that's a terminology we use to shorten clinical operations. And as you go through these interviews, you'll see all of us using acronyms and shortened terminology. It's what we do in the industry. So we in ClinOps work across the spectrum. We're really the team that ensures that our particular clinical trials are staying on task and on target. We work across the spectrum with a whole bunch of other people in the organization to make sure that that goal is delivered and it's delivered on time. Basically, to put it, lightly, I talk a lot to a lot of people. Sometimes I know how to do something, sometimes I don't, and I have to rely on my colleagues for that. But I think that that's the beauty of what we do. Like I said, no 2 days are alike, and you wake up with a fresh start every day with a common goal in mind, but you really don't know where you're going to tackle that day. So, we sort of work together as a team to fulfill our clinical trial obligations. And another part of my role as well is making sure that we have the infrastructure and the processes to do what we do to reduce redundancies and be the most efficient as we possibly can when we execute our clinical trials.
Great. Thank you.
Mhm.
I think maybe it would be great for our audience if you just described what a clinical trial is, just really, really quickly, really, just a big picture view.
Yes, absolutely. So, in order for a drug to make it to market, so when you go to the pharmacy and you pick up your medicine, there's this little package insert. It's called that accompanies your medicine. And if you ever look at that, it's probably millions of words and tiny, tiny, tiny print. Well, all of that stuff that goes into that is the data from clinical trials. So there's different phases of clinical trials in order to get that drug into a pharmacy from phase 1 to phase 3. And then obviously once it makes it to the market, we have what's called phase 4 clinical trials, which is post-marketing,
Mhm.
either commitments with the agency, the FDA, or to advance and further develop that medicine. So we need people. We need people to enroll in clinical trials to give us the data to support that medicine so that once it actually gets out into the general public, we feel confident that it has a really strong safety profile and it's doing what it says it's intended to do. And that's the whole purpose of clinical trials, to really sort of button it up and put it in a nutshell.
Excellent. And you mentioned how you work with a lot of other people on your team. Can you describe some of the jobs that your coworkers do?
Sure, yeah. So as I mentioned previously about the clinical trials, it's really reliant on patient data. We wouldn't have a product on the market if we didn't have data to support it. So there's a lot of people that I work with, biostatisticians and data managers and safety managers, that really sort of take the numbers and the data and sort of crunch that into digestible information.
Mhm.
So whether it's data that's coming out of a clinical trial on, you know, after a patient completes specific assessments for that clinical trial protocol, or it's actually data that comes into our safety database so that we can continually evaluate the safety of a product, either before it gets to market or even after it gets on the market. So those are some roles and some people that I work with. There's people that really like those numbers and really like the data aspect of it. I also
Mhm.
work with a lot of physicians and medical doctors, because in the industry, we really need that expertise and medical expertise for developing drugs these days. Not just these days, but in general. And then just in general, across the business organization, I work with people in accounting and finance. We have to pay our bills. We have vendors that we work with that, submit invoices to us. So it really runs the gamut. Lots of people with clinical backgrounds, as well as some folks without clinical backgrounds. And I think, again, that's another hallmark and beauty of the industry that we're in. I get to work with different, aspects of the business.
Mhm. Excellent. What do you think is the best part of your job? What do you most enjoy getting up in the morning to do?
Well, I most enjoy my coffee getting up in the morning. But after that, the newness of every day. I think, as I alluded to earlier, no 2 days are alike. I really never know what's going to happen for the day. I can have a checklist and I can be calculated in my approach for the day, but ultimately something always comes up. A fire, as we call it in the industry, we have to put out fires. So I
Mhm.
think from that perspective, that's what I like. I like the newness of it. I like not knowing every day what is going to happen, and just learning. As I mentioned, obviously, I work with lots of different people, really, really smart people, I'll add. So for me, waking up every day, learning something new, I always, have a fresh start to every day, and really collaborating with a lot of people every day is really what I enjoy the most about my job.
Excellent. And how did you get to this job? Can you tell us what your career path was?
How much time do you have? Just kidding. So it's been a long journey, and definitely not planned. So, after high school, I enrolled in an undergraduate program. At that time, I was going to school for history education. Clearly, I'm
That's a
not a
big
history
difference.
educator. I went for history education, and then I moved on to sociology, and then I moved on to the dreaded undeclared. And then I realized I'm running out of time and running out of courses. I should probably pick something to do with my life. So I ended up going into biology, again, not because it was a last choice. I just didn't really know what to do with it. So graduated with my degree in medical biology. Somewhere in between declaring that major and graduation, I also thought it would be great to go to nursing school. So upon graduation, I enrolled in a nursing program and completed a couple semesters of nursing. Somewhere along the way there, I realized I don't know that I want to finish my nursing degree, and I kind of want to work in the lab again. So I left nursing school and I started looking for lab jobs and ended up going back into the lab. And it was only there that I really discovered clinical research. So there was a girl that I was working with, and she was taking some courses in the program. And I thought, well, that sounds really cool. It's kind of a, interesting blend of science and healthcare, and I might really like this.
Mhm.
So I started doing some research on my own, started looking at different programs out there. I think we're lucky enough to be in the mecca of healthcare and biotech here in the Boston and greater Boston area. So very quickly, I started networking and realized this really was something that I was interested in. So I enrolled in a master's program for clinical investigation and then really started my career that way. I started taking some courses and then ultimately ended up working for one of the largest CROs in the nation and really got my start there. And here I am today, well over a decade later, and, still loving the industry. So kind of a convoluted way to get here, but it was worth the journey.
No, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, as I meet with so many industry professionals, I'm always fascinated by all the various and gnarly career paths that bring people to where they are.
Yeah.
And I think it's really fantastic information for young people to hear too, because nobody expects you to know exactly what you're going to be doing when you're 40 or 50, when you're 15 or 16. And most interesting people have very, very long, circuitous routes anyway. Um, Great. So, what advice do you have for young people if they're in high school or college right now, and they're thinking that maybe a career in the life sciences would be good for them? What kind of advice would you like to share?
Yeah, definitely. So much. There's so much to share. I think just really what I can say, and as you can, as I articulated with my career education and career path, there's really so many different paths you can take. And it's really difficult to sort of navigate that and really kind of pinpoint what it is. I guess my advice is, especially in the day and age where we are in now, where things change by the minute, technology is advancing every single day. To just not box yourself into one thought of what you wanted to be or who you wanted to be or what course of study you want to take. I think have a focus, but be open to all different opportunities and all different options within that program.
Hmm.
Because I can say nowadays it's very clear that careers are not linear like they used to be back in the day.
Yeah.
You go to school to be a secretary, you go to school to be a doctor, you go to school to be a teacher. There's so many different nuances and avenues you can take. And quite frankly, the career you might end up in 4, 5, 6 years from now may not even exist now. So really sort of just have a focus in mind, stay creative, stay curious, ask questions, network, and really just try to get yourself out there in the community and don't be afraid to make mistakes. And if you feel like you have to course correct midway through and you're kind of scratching your head like, oh my God, this isn't what I signed up for, it's okay. It's okay to pivot. It's okay to change course. Just enjoy the journey. There's a reason that, liberal arts degrees are really, you know, really impressive these days. I know when I interview somebody, I ask less questions about the technical stuff and I try to get more to the heart of, can they critically think? Do they have innovative ideas on, how to do something? What is their communication style? Things of that nature versus whether they can do X, Y, and Z or not. I can teach that probably, especially in an entry level position. But some of those other softer skills and some of those other critical and innovative thinking aspects are really what propel people in this career. Because as I mentioned, things change every day. So you need to sort of think quickly and be creative in your thought process. There's a lot of gray area in clinical research. We don't have a manual that says everything's black and white. So that would be my advice to anybody, especially anybody looking to break into this industry or to take any coursework in it, is just be curious, ask a lot of questions, and really just get yourself out there. You're in the mecca of biotech here. There's no shortage of resources. I think you've come to the right place even with Mass Bio, because they're, just a wealth of knowledge and can sort of set you off on the right foot there as well. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This has been very illuminating, and I'm sure people enjoy it. So
Great.
thank you.
Thank you so much. And I wish everybody luck. Stay safe. Stay, stay at home, stay safe,
Yeah.
and, enjoy the summer.